Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I'm honored to have Devon Cajuste with me. You're going to hear a phenomenal story about just a remarkable human being. A couple of things that stood out to me, though, is one, just the competitive nature of this guy. I mean, not only in his high school playing days, his college playing days, but then into the pros. The second thing, and I'm going to read the phrase because I don't want to botch it for him, but it's you have to love yourself no matter how tough things get. And I think, having that as a phrase that Devon has used before is certainly something that is seen in the lifestyle he leads. So, Devon, thanks so much for being on today, brother.
Thank you so much, Phil. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So just diving in, and I mean, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, you'll notice that his shoulders are significantly wider than mine. So you can tell he's an athlete. So let's just talk about it. You mentioned that, hey, at the age of 11, you started playing football. And one of the main reasons you wanted to do that was because of your dad. So talk a little bit about just getting started in football and what that meant to you.
So deep, so deep looking back on it, right?
Yeah.
Played 8 sports growing up, and football was like the last one. It's something that I just wanted my dad to be like, yo, I love you. I'm proud of you. You're not soft. You're not a weakling. Like many of us men in society or people really look at our fathers as this strong role model. And this is considered like the gladiator sport.
Yeah.
And New York, grew up by the water. It gets really super hot and humid, or it gets really cold.
Yeah.
If I can do this, as much as I don't like getting hit, I don't want anything to do this. Like that man showed up on the field though. And what I've learned is looking back is so many of us are willing to go so far for what we define as love. We go so far for this creation and this visual of like feeling of what we want this expression to be fulfilled as. And our parents seem to satiate that void. So I was willing to put myself in a predicament that I wanted absolutely nothing to do with to obtain that.
Absolutely. So and remember this because we're coming back to this at a future spot. So you start playing football and, once again, some kids start playing football at 6, right? And some kids don't start playing until high school. You're, in between there at 11. Was it something just right off the bat you were good at? Was it something like, man, I'm not very good at this, but I'm going to keep trying because I want to make my dad proud? Or how did that play out for you?
I thought I was pretty decent. I actually started defense.
Okay.
So because I'd rather deliver the hit than get hit. And I played defensive end, and I just remember playing my first game after practice and getting 3 sacks, that rush, that feeling of like crushing someone or again, initiating the strength.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, all right, I guess I could do this a little bit. And then most recently I'm listening to information and having conversations about testosterone, and it's a lot in men, not that it isn't in females as well, right. But there is this natural urge to want to compete, conquer, succeed through this aggression, if you will. And I want to use that lightly because controlled aggression is to, or say, force. Mm-hmm. And when I experienced that, I was like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. There's a couple times where they'd be like, all right, here's the ball on offense, run once. And I remember, I think it was like 5 out of 6 touchdowns scored were all called back because someone either blocked in the back or something happened. So that was my only taste of offense, but I was born on defense. And that created a deep love liking for the game as a child. So continue.
Absolutely. So as you get a little bit older, your dad has a really hard conversation with you at 13 years old.
Wow. No one has brought this up in a long time. Wow. You have done your research. I was like, wow. Yeah. So 13 years old and I'm in Florida and I'm in my grandmother's house and my dad's cutting my hair and it's 1:00 in the morning and, we're drinking wine. Honestly, it's just like my dad's like showing me a good time on vacation. He's like, oh, good. So like, don't punish him, universe. It's great. But as he's cutting my hair and you're like, he's cutting my hair at 1:00 in the morning, drinking wine. Like, how well is that going to go? But thankfully he's a militant and high and tight and you really can't mess that up. And if you mess that up, shave the whole thing to a zero, right? So, but we're really connecting. It's one of my favorite moments, just favorite moments because, and I wouldn't say like this moment in particular, but again, like as you're a teenager, as you're young, when you get a moment with your dad and it's one-on-one, and I didn't see him a lot, So this to me was one of those moments of like really connecting with him and I'm getting accepted. But what does he end up doing? All of a sudden we're having this great conversation. He just stops and he's just like, Devin, I got to tell you something. I'm just like, what, Dad? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Doctor says I got 5 years left to live, max. And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm starting to well up. And he's like, don't cry. Don't you cry now, boy. And you're just like, and I immediately start calculating, that's my 18th birthday. That's my freshman year in college. And it's kind of heavy news to drop on your son. But at the same time, like, I'm not the first person to ever experience something like this, but he felt well enough that I could be prepared for it. So I'm going through my career in football, using that as a motivator. And, my dad had a heart attack in my first year playing in football, period. We won the Super Bowl and he fucking suddenly left, and then he had another later. And then he had a third one when I was in Cleveland. But 13, that moment was so powerful because he redefined what fighting meant. He redefined what resilience and determination meant. And that's where, I heard, Cajuste, we're fighters, we don't quit. And that's, this is something that sticks with me very much. And, if it wasn't for this moment that him and I had and breaking down but also standing up, and this man, I'm sure we'll list them later in this conversation, but, a plethora of health issues. And to tell your son, like, but I'm not going anywhere, he would say all the time. I got this much time left, but I'm not going anywhere, right? Like, what a confidence. And yet here he is, he's been waiting for 5 years, we're at 13, I think, 13 years in this moment. And you're just amazed by sheer will. So, but that's what started the fighting, the resilience, though. Although I don't like something, although that I don't want to get up, I don't want to do something, my dad is afraid to go to sleep because he doesn't know if he's going to get up. But when he does get up the next day, he's like, I'm blessed, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, like I'm dealing with this, that, and the other, but like, I'm going to fight and continue to live my life. And so I look at my life, and unfortunately to compare, but also it was a power to recognize, hey, like I'm feeling this, like, but it's not what my dad's going through. My dad's to be here today, and he just turned 55 a couple of weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's still very young.
Yeah.
Still very young to potentially die in your 40s. And yet now he's fighting every day to live it through his 50s to obtain 60. And it's like, it was a good seed that was planted.
Absolutely. Now, something I want to ask you about there is, how did, that type of a relationship, and even, the comment, like you said, hey, don't cry, don't let the emotion out. How did that shape you? And, obviously today, I don't know how in tune with you were, at 18 or, in the younger years, but I know today you are very in tune. But, talk about maybe growing up, not necessarily fast forwarding today, but growing up, having, that type of a role model of, hey, suppress it, don't show those feelings, those emotions, how that impacted you.
I'd say in a lot of ways it did greatness, good things, but I'd say it did more damage than anything. And I feel that many men, or many people even, can relate to this, not even men, but like everyone can relate to this, is the suppression of emotion leads to the breakdown of the system. And suppressing my emotions was very difficult because I am so sensitive. Like, I'm aware I'm just a sensitive creature, and I accept this now, but growing up with that, I think it led to a lot of lack of trust in people. It led a lot of lack of trust in myself. I didn't have security in who I was in any way, shape, or form. I tried to fit in so many spaces, so many places, being a chameleon just to be accepted.
Wow.
And then I was simultaneously afraid of sharing how I felt because I was bullied, I was picked on, I'm doofy, I'm whatever it is, constantly being defined by the things outside of me. Wow. And so this expression of emotion that just wants to bloom basically is just like getting its head chopped off every day. trying to figure out why can't I fit here and here and here, and yet my colors are changing constantly.
Right.
So learning to suppress only led to me cutting off so many people, and honestly, it wasn't healthy at all.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up not only from my dad's end, who wasn't around very much, as again, like every other weekend, but he's a busy guy and he worked a lot. And again, like my story, you can compare it, is like people don't have their dads, so being blessed to see him at all, to people who have the happiest father in the world. On my mother's side, I grew up in a household of 9 to 13 people. You know, that's a tremendous amount of motion, tremendous amount of explosiveness,
right?
You know, and so dancing with all of this, not being able to direct it or understand it, I knew that the way that I treated people in a very powerful sense, what I felt was above and beyond, because I cared so much about how people felt that I know what it's like to not feel. But then at the same time, it was like Jekyll and Hyde, where the moment that I felt this like lack of trust or creating these fears and illusions, I was willing to chop someone down. I wasn't willing to let them in my circle. I wasn't willing to really accept the love that they were willing to give me. And allowing very few people close to me, I then only really projected this false sense of not security, but who I was to these people. So feeling this judgment, feeling this like condemnation and this, all of these opinions, I flipped that into like this twisted way of thinking. I flipped it into like, if you're going to judge me for the way that I'm dressing, and I would do this intentionally, I would dress like a tool, like what would seem like cool and like all those other shit, but that wasn't me. I would dress this way to see if someone was going to judge me just for the way that I dress, I don't want them in my life. So I'm already setting the tone to be judged. I'm already setting the tone that if you're going to project your emotions, the thing that I can't even like express rightfully, I don't want you there, which only suppresses my emotions more.
Wow.
Right? I was only experiencing what I was feeling. So then the second that I created this reality of like, no one can see me for who I am except those that pierced through my hard shell, then people can understand like, yo, he's actually a beautiful person who's just really hurting. So the suppression of emotion only continued to lead to such immense suffering. Like I really suffered in my mind, in my body, and yet very few people knew this. And most recently, not to fast forward so much, like this is the thing that I've been healing the most. Like, why don't I ask for help? How many people don't ask for help? And when they do ask for help, it's it's either you're a narcissist, you're taking advantage, or of like you're really introverted and you're insecure and you like hide, right? Where is the genuine, why can't I just ask for help? Why is it when someone asks you, how are you doing? This then is like, is this permission? And even when they want to say, I'm okay, they still don't feel like that they have the right to actually say how they are. And this from suppressing your emotions as a child. Don't be hurt. Your words are not worthy. Sit, be seen, but not heard. You know, like all of these things considered as weakness. And yet the way that I've looked at it is, what is more difficult, to sit under, like put all your emotions underneath this boulder and let it sit there, or lift the boulder? So as you're sitting there and letting your emotions be suppressed, that's exactly what's like, oh, this is a man. Cool. So you have a really big mountain that's hiding all of this explosive energy, but yet what's harder is actually to contain that emotion. No, releasing that. Releasing that energy is way more powerful, way more impactful, because now if you're showing this energy to release and express it beautifully or however you want, you then, the other person, they too have permission to express how they are. And this is more challenging, I feel, in society today than to be the boulder.
Man, that's good. All right, everybody. I don't know exactly how long that was, but let's say 2 minutes. Rewind that for 2 minutes. Listen to that. Just put it on loop and listen to that. Dude, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. That's good, man. That's good. So getting back to, we're in high school now and we're progressing. You're becoming better and better at football. And heading into senior year, you're ranked the 4th best in the state of New York, which is not a small state, and it's not lacking good athletes, talented players. Talk a little bit about when you finally realize, all right, hey, being able to play in college is going to be a serious opportunity for me. And then, hey, I'm getting like top offers, not just playing in college, but some of the top schools are really attracted to what I can bring to them.
I think this is, I felt it was actually more of a gift to recognize I was so insecure. And my dad won't admit this, which is hilarious, but I love you, Dad. I just want you to know that. But it was because of his words of, now that you're at this level, you won't be the best. Now you're not good enough. Now you're playing with like, now you think you think you're a hot shot. And I never thought I actually ever believed I was this hot shot. I know the projection that could be held with this mirror, but it was because I thought I was nothing and I'm not good enough. And I was like, yeah, I was ranked a receiver, but immediately you talked about New York. I'm like, it's New York of football. Where would I be if I was in the South?
Right.
Where would I be then? Am I as good as those guys? Like, and I didn't think anything of when I received an offer. I'm like, oh, first one was Syracuse. And my coach is like, you got to take this. Like, you probably are going to get another, you're not going to get another one.
Wow.
And I'm just like, so this constant of just not thinking I'm good enough, not thinking I'm worthy or whatever politics is going on. And I remember I think it was my senior year. Like, did you ever think you were going to play D1? And I was like, it never crossed my mind that football was an opportunity.
Wow.
It was, I'm just going to keep playing and do the best that I can because it's something that my dad will love me for.
Wow.
He said, bro, it's something that I'm going to get attention for. It's something that people valued me. I was loved. Wow. I didn't, so even going to college and just tapping into this stream, like I was ranked the lowest out of the 19 that were in that class. And I was ranked as tight end and I never played it. I never put my hand in the dirt. So I was like, yep, here it is again. Like not even acknowledged for what I'm playing or how I am, and tore my ACL. And then I was in exile and I learned so much about how my teammates thought I was going to get kicked off the team and I was nothing. And I just was a rebellious person and no one understood me, not even my best friend at the time. I remember getting sat in front of the whole team after I was late for like the umpteenth time in the morning of the gym. And people just thought I didn't care. And it was like, no, I have so much anxiety about being late. I don't sleep that I would wake up with night terrors screaming. And there are times where I autonomously woke up on my bike already halfway to the gym at 3 or 4 in the morning because I was afraid of being late. But it was sleep apnea. It was anxiety. It was all this stress and pressure because no one, again, understood. And I was suppressing these emotions. And all I had to do was prove myself.
Wow.
It was constant proving. It was this constant, I'm not fucking good enough. No one wants to see me as Devon. No one wants to see this gentle giant. They just want to see this rebellious asshole who didn't care. And so I built a lot of rage. I had a lot of rage. So it was more, even when I got to the NFL, same thing. It was like, I'm just an undrafted guy. I wasn't valued enough to be drafted. I'm blessed to give an opportunity because of someone else. Like every step of the way, it really was. It wasn't even on Hard Knocks. It was just like, I gotta fucking prove people wrong. Like it was, that's what motivated me. It was anger and rage, and it changed the most in the NFL, but like a lot of pain. That's what got me there.
Yeah.
That's what got me there. I got to do what others won't today so I can achieve what others can't tomorrow. Jerry Rice, right?
Yeah.
That's what got me. So
talking about that, you bring up a great point of, sometimes people saying things like, you're not going to make it is a driving factor, right? I mean, it's like, oh, well, if you say I can't, well, now I'm certainly going to do it. So thanks for the motivation. At the same token, I almost feel like when people say you can accomplish something, sometimes they see something you could do before you see you could do it. That's motivation as well. But how does one take that as motivation, but then not harness it as animosity towards someone or anger towards somebody? Because, a lot of those things are good, right? Maybe Devon wouldn't have reached as much skill and talent as he would have without those comments. But how do you then relinquish the frustration with someone, right? The animosity towards them? How does one have both?
Great question. 2 parts here. I just wanted to because you said if someone was like, you can do it, you can do so well. I was the person that when I heard that, it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You're just saying this. That didn't actually motivate me.
Yeah.
It actually almost like pushed me away because I'm like, that's not real. Because again, I believe it. So it was an insecurity, right? Like, because all I hear, not enough. But yet such a large community of people like, oh my God, you're going to do it. But then I was able to twist it and go like, well, that's self-motivating. You just want me to succeed so you can be a part of this coattail and all that. You don't believe that. Again, creating this illusion of being so alone. So I know people can relate to this as well. And it's not that when people boosted you up, it didn't also affect you. It was nice to hear. It feels good. But then again came the insecurity. And that's what I'm talking about. How do you eliminate the frustration and the rage? You have to get to your root. You have to get to the understanding of, well, why is it when this proving ideology comes up, where does this stem from? Why do you feel that you have to? Where do you feel lack? What void are you creating that you have now given the power away? You've created their value system as yours. And when you recognize that your value system was based on something inside of you, boom, now you can cut that off and redefine what is your value system? What moves you for the sake of you? If football was taken away from you, would you still be able to prove to yourself and move through society for whatever it is, right? Like you use the conduit to express this as football, chop it off. Can you then reapply that to your job? Okay, cool. Be good enough. So the frustration and the rage continued because the root of the tree was the same. The color of this rainbow or the direction of this energy just shifted. It transformed. It didn't transmute.
Yes.
And so to the bottom of that root of why you feel lack thereof, boom, then you take that weed out. You can take that tree out, whatever it is, and really secure yourself with who you are. And then decide, is this something that I still want to pursue? Now that I'm secure in who I am, then this is where the stuff gets really enjoyable and fun, because that can change what you desire to put yourself in. And this is how it did for me later in the NFL.
That's awesome. I appreciate that insight. That's good. So you end up deciding to go play at Stanford. It's a little bit of ways away from New York, brother. So how does this decision happen? You know, what was the selling point of Stanford? Obviously, it's a great school, great football program, but what was the selling point? You know, what took you there?
I always laugh when I share this, because when I got the scholarship, I didn't know who Stanford was whatsoever. I didn't even know it was like a scholarship. Aren't they like a D3 school? I've never heard of them. Maybe that has to go in grants. Like, that's how much I was such an outdoors kid in like games, you know, like education was like always do well. But my father was telling me where I was going to go to school. And then came the opportunity of Stanford. And when Mrs. White, she was the teacher that I went to go and ask, is this a good school? Long story short, I do a bunch of research on Stanford that day. I watch a 2-hour lecture with Irv Wiseman on the front page, and he does stem cell research. And stem cell research, regenerative medicine, he was curing mice of paralysis and curing cancer, lung cancer specifically. Wow. And for me, I was like, whoa, intrigued immediately, because my dad has lung cancer. So I'm going to cure my dad. Like, I know this is possible, right? Wow. That was my first incentive. Then it's in California. Like, I was like, oh, I want to be in California, and I wanted to truly be away from my family. I felt the environment that I was in was just too toxic. And although I didn't know it was abnormal, it was just, I wanted to be as far away as I could. Then came the two cities. It was in Silicon Valley. I was such a tech gadget nerd, like, gotta have the Apple this. Samsung was Windows was like whatever, programming, like really just into technology. And I'm like, why wouldn't I go to the tech center of the world or at least the United States? Then I'm thinking, I love snowboarding. The greatest mountains are right there in the country. I love to go in the water, the beach, like everything, surfing. I want to go learn that. Boom, best coast for the beaches. So all of this was there. And then it was like, oh, and the education. Like, I can't wait to learn about education, because my second choice was actually Harvard. It was about education first. And like, okay, football too. It was the best of both worlds. Like, football was the last reason that I had gone to Stanford, but it was a doorway to what allowed me to be there.
Absolutely.
all of this incentive. I was like, yep, going, got no problem. Like I can be away from the fam, like, and simultaneous though hits, this is going to be the year of my dad.
Right.
When I'm
yeah.
18. So, but Stanford was for those reasons. And it was the color red, and red was my favorite color. Like my top 5 choices, 4 of them were the color red or I didn't even know that, like, until I reflected back on it.
Subconsciously.
I was so biased. So, yeah.
That's hilarious. Hey, any college coaches listen to this, make sure to ask your top recruits what their favorite color is. You may just be out of the running right off the bat. Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
Recognize that later.
So with your time at Stanford, you know, as is usual, right? You transition into the program. And like you said, hey, it didn't happen right off the bat, right? I wasn't All-American season 1. I wasn't an All-American season 2, but you continue to progress. You get better. Things are happening. You're playing on good teams. I mean, you got a lot of great teammates during these times, at least skill-wise. You know, I don't know how they are as human, but at least skill-wise, you got great teammates. So talk a little bit about just the progression of, you know, coming in as a freshman and D1 football and, you know, the coaches that really took time to teach you, help you to develop the skills and transition into the player that you grow to be by the end of senior year.
Well, the first memory that comes to me was on my official visit there. They have like this camp, just to let you know what the tone was set at Stanford. So I'm deciding to come there, and we go to this camp, and after I do all of this, I'm a big receiver, I'm 225, like you're probably going to think I'm slow, like probably going to convert me to a tight end, but Stanford was the only school that was willing to let me be a receiver. So that also was another major incentive, to be honest, with the football. And I do the camp, and at the end of it, Pep Hamilton comes up to me. He's the offensive coordinator at the time, and I love Pep. Like I really do love Pep. Pep and Aaron Moorhead, like love those guys. Receivers coach was Aaron Moorhead. But Pep comes up to me and he goes, Cajuste, Devon, I'm so glad that you came to this camp. And I was like, why? And he's like, because honestly, none of the coaches here had any idea why Jim Harbaugh gave you the scholarship.
Wow.
So I was like, sick. And then you hear, so all the coaches are circling around me having this conversation. Jim Harbaugh's over there and he hears that and he's walking over. He's like, Devon Cajuste, Cajuste, Juice, like, Juice man, my guy, like comes over and gives me that support, right?
Yeah.
But that was known as like the only coach that actually believed in me was Jim Harbaugh. And I was, yep, cool. So I'm coming to this school, and Jim goes to the Niners.
I was going to say, that doesn't last long.
Yeah, it doesn't last long at all. And so that's my tone setter. And like now it's on top of my dad. It's like, now you'll be the big boys. Now you won't be the all-star, right? Like proving wrong, rank proving wrong. And I'm going through summer camp, and I'm just like, I'm going to prove to these peeps that I can play. And finally, boom, we go through all of summer camp, training camp, and it's going to be the first, like, say it's going to the first game week. The Sunday before, we do like a game prep. We go through the stadium the first time. It's a walkthrough. Coach Shaw tells Ty Montgomery and myself, he's like, you guys are going to play this year as true freshmen. And I'm like, that's like the greatest thing you can hear, right? Like, you're worth it. You're not going to redshirt. I'm like, awesome. 2 days later on a Tuesday, I run a one-on-one route, go up, catch the ball, do really well, turn forward, tear my ACL. And as I look back on it, the knee has everything to do with stability, with parents and life and being able to move forward. And I didn't have that foundation. Wow. And there goes the next 9 months, essentially, where I'm in exile. I'm in team meetings, but I'm a nobody. I'm a freshman. Like, people are training. I'm watching the team go well. Like, I'm not making shit on time. Like, PT's rough. Like, this, I've never experienced anything like this. I'm alone on the, have no friends except one. And it's like, cool. And I remember my first big feat was, there's this thing called the VersaClimber. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's this machine. When you get on it, you have handles and feet, and you're basically climbing in place.
Yep.
And we called this VersaClimber Old Sandy because literally it was like rusty as hell, impossible to move until it warmed up. And if you wanted to pass in PT to start moving to the next steps, to like running, you needed to get a certain threshold, like 900 feet. I think it was like 950 for receivers. And the record was 986, held by Shannon Turley. And this man I have to give the most credit to, because he truly taught me accountability, responsibility, and just maturity as a young one. And he really ingrained that, and anyone who's ever trained with Turley can really understand this. But he'd have me doing the 5-minute bursa, and that's what it took to get to those feet to pass. And he's going like, break the record. Like, why won't you break the record? Go break the record. Like, take that belt from me. Like, just really egging me on. And then came the point where he's like, you got to be in front of the team and do it in front of them on Friday. And I was like, no, like, I'm just not doing that. Right.
Yeah.
Like, first big feat, but I did end up doing it on a Wednesday, and I'm going after it. And here comes Enter the Sandman, New York State of Mind. I'm playing, I'm going. And then comes the final 5 seconds, and I'm pushing. And finally I break 1,000 feet, and I get 1,005. First person to break 1,000. I think this is huge feat, and I hop off it, and I'm screaming, fuck you, Turley. Give me that fucking belt, you piece of shit. Like, you fucking asshole. Like, this rage coming out, recognizing like he, again, saw something that I did not.
Yeah.
It was the first moment of proving to my entire team, like, none of y'all have done this. No one has done this. Like, I don't want to hear that I can't do it. And that set the tone. So then I'm finally rehabbing, and I finished that. I come back for my sophomore year, and my first goal, only goal, was to get into the active roster.
Yeah.
And then it came to get my first catch. And I got one catch that year. And I remember being so excited in Colorado. Boom. Then came the next season where I'm like, I just want one touchdown.
Yep.
And then came that first play, not first play, but like huge touchdown in San Jose State. Boom. Then I wanted to get on special teams, and only got a little bit on special teams, punt return, like nothing crazy. Not really the best at that. But it was like, now I want to start in a team. Now I want to get multiple touchdowns. And each time I just kept setting the next goal, because I just knew people were like, you won't, you can't, you're different. Yeah. And I was always in this relationship, and it was either relationship, school, ball. Like, partying was something I rarely did.
Yeah.
And again, I'm putting on this persona that, again, like, don't fuck with me. Like, judge me by the way I look. Cool. Fuck you too. Like, so my journey was like this constant climb of living in a shadow of a dear friend, and honestly listening to them complain constantly how they're not getting the ball enough. They're not this enough. They're not whatever. On this potential to be a Heisman. You know, they're the leading receiver. I'm the second leading receiver, down by 30 or 40 catches. That's not even attempts. And he's starting, and they're getting old. He's on like punt return, kick return, like running back, quarterback. And I'm just trying to get the ball, like just a few times. And so there was this rage again of like, why am I not good enough to get the ball? Why am I not good enough to be seen? But you know what? I'm just going to keep fucking going. I'm going to keep proving. And I came so far, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove it at pro day. I'm going to show these guys that my real motivator was Julio Jones. Now, obviously, I'm not Julio Jones.
Yeah.
However, it was like similar stature, both like 6'3", 6'4", same weight size, weight class. Like, are you there? All right. Yep, same weight size, all of this stuff. And I'm like, did 36 inches, he did 40. Ran a 4.44, he ran a 4.3 or a 4.4 or whatever. Like, broad jump, very similar. Like, all of this stuff, very similar to Julio. And I'm like, now I'm going to get my shot. It still didn't mean anything. There was still this political who you know going on in the background that I'm just like, why am I not enough? Yeah. Like, it just sucks you dry. And you're like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm still going to go and prove them wrong. Like, I came this far, like undrafted free agent. Awesome. Here we go, Niners. Like, prove them wrong. Lowest in the receivers, only white guy. Like, you know, you're hearing all the racial stuff. You think that it's real. Like, all of that stuff, because I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know what it meant. Yeah. I'm still trying to, who is Devon? Like, I'm so quirky. I'm so doofy. I'm just odd. Like, I couldn't embrace that. And boom, I start bonding with Colin Kaepernick, and we start clicking in the Niners. And I'm like, yo, I'm going to get to play now. Like, I'm making plays, I'm balling, and then I get cut. Yep. And I remember sitting with my, I love this. I was sitting with my receivers coach. He looks me dead in my face, and he goes, Cajuste, like, I honestly have no idea why we're releasing you. Wow. We have no say with the front office up top, but don't think that you can't play in this league. And honestly, like, I just need you to know that. And I mean that, and I'm not just saying that. And I'm like, great. Like, what is that? Like, great. So I'm supposed to be able to play, and like, I'm good enough to be here and make a difference, but yet, because you have no say, I won't. learning more about politics. And then you go to the Packers.
Yeah.
The Packers are like, hey, man, will you play tight end for us? And I'm going, hey, but it'll keep me on the field.
Right.
And this journey is honestly where everything really shifted for me.
Yes.
You're learning a whole new position. You're learning a whole new language. I'm going to have to put on 25 pounds. I'm going to put my hand in the dirt, and I'm going to do it at the highest fucking level there is to play this sport.
Right.
I will never forget, and I love sharing this story, but it was my first play, like actually in pads. And receivers, we stock block. Basically, we go and like trap a guy. That's it. Like just trap him. Stand in his way, block him. Like nothing serious. At tight end, I was like, you have to learn to be a lineman. And I am basically having to block a 17-year Hall of Famer against Julius Peppers.
Yeah.
And 300 pounds, silverback gorilla. And I go to stock block, not drive block. And he palms me in the chest with one hand. I go flying into the backfield that the pulling guard hits me in the spine. So I get punched in the face, in the chest, hit in the spine. I black out. I blow up the whole play. Coach stopped practice, pulls me aside. I'm seeing stars. And that was my welcome to the NFL. That was welcome to tight end. And I'm in the middle of Green Bay, Wisconsin. I got one friend. It's negative 30 degrees. I don't know anything. My coach isn't really helping me learn a fucking language I don't know how to play. Like agents kind of whatever at the time. And it's like, you want to talk about hopeless?
Yeah.
You want to talk about asking yourself, why am I here playing a sport that I don't even love? I like. And when I said I was a child and I found this deep love, that was administering the pain. That was false love. That was like, oh, I'm getting approval from my dad, so this is lovely.
Yeah.
But really, Devon didn't love the game. He loved the moments of the game. He liked moments of the game. And I'm like, what am I doing? Suicide, bro? That was the realest. That was one of the most realest that had gotten in my life. And I was very Christian at the time. I'm in the Bible and I'm going to Bible study. And I'm just like, it was 4 weeks of this. I'm a human punching bag. I get 5 minor concussions in my first practice and second practice, and you can't report it. I have 3 herniations in my neck. Like I'm just a punching bag, like demoralized. I'm just running around. I'm like, I got no purpose. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And finally, I'm talking to Yeshua over and over. I'm like, I want this relationship with Yeshua. What is with these people and Yeshua? They have this awesome relationship. And I'm reading the Bible. I'm getting pissed off. And I'm like, this unconditional love that I feel from this being, I don't believe would say this stuff. I don't believe that I'd be like, you're going to go to hell. I'm like, unconditional means no conditions. It means ultimate forgiveness and everything acceptance. So all of a sudden I hear, put the Bible down, like loud, like someone screamed it in the room. And I was like, whoa, put the Bible down. And I'm like kind of freaked out at the same time. It's 1 a.m. And I hear like, my vision goes right to this book, The Energy Bus by John Gordon. He's like, read The Energy Bus. And he's a little Christian as well. And he basically talks about the tools of joy. I advise people to go read that, just not from, if you're religious or not, just observe, listen to the tools. It's beautiful.
Yes.
And because 3 is my favorite number, listen to your mother. And I go home for that bye week. And that bye week, my mom's like, will you come to a crystal store? And I'm just like, whatever, mom, here we go. And other long story short, basically that was my introduction to stones and crystals. I have like these tingling sensations. I smile for the first time and I'm like, wow, I'm a scientist, like placebo effect. I don't care. Like this works. Go back to Green Bay and I changed my insides. I changed my life. I changed my perspective. I changed my energy. I changed my view on the way that I'm existing. And I watched that directly affect my teammates. I watched the entire energy shift because then I became the mirror for my teammates and my teammates became the mirror of myself. And I'm learning about this energy, this constant multiplication.
Yeah.
It's not division.
Right.
It's not like you're because, and I'm like, there's something to this. Like, I don't know what this energy thing is, but it's real and it's amazing. Boom. So I secretly am holding in crystals and energy in the woo-woo, if you will.
Yeah.
And then come week 15, I'm learning tight end. I'm getting charged. And I get an opportunity. They tell me on Thursday, you're going to play this week. On Saturday, get ready. And I'm like, this is it. Like I did it. Like I get an opportunity. I prove myself in the NFL. Like I learned a new position. Like, oh, let's go. I'm gonna play with Aaron. Like all of this, right?
Right.
Last play of practice on Thursday, mirror to my freshman year. It's a one-on-one route. I'm wide open. I'm coming back for the ball. Tear my left ACL on the right side. Tear my right ACL on the right side. Like, boom. Didn't drop the ball as my claim to fame with it. And I remember grabbing my knee. And I knew it. Like, I'm like, maybe I'm safe though, because it didn't hurt as much. And they do the ACL test, and my knee just pulls a little too far. And I'm like, it's gone. And I get up, and I remember going to the training room, and Coach McCarthy comes in for my second conversation. And I remember asking him, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm great. But tomorrow is the 23rd of December, and we do Secret Santa. Can I dress up in my Santa suit? And he goes, sure, Cajuste, right? But this is what I started to discover with these moments.
Yeah.
Where it was like, as long as I can be who I am, and the things that make me joyful is actually how I affect others. And it's being a guy that wants to come in a Santa suit and his crutches, and it's like, this is just a game. This doesn't identify who I am. Like this energy, and I can contribute to a team through this energy, through this joy, through this expression, because I actually feel full. So then I rehab the following year. I try out for the pack again. I end up having a back spasm during the tryout, but I play through the whole thing. Everyone's willing to sign me. The GM's like, let's get an MRI. Find out I have a herniated disc. Like, they didn't like it. Front office goes to Cleveland. Cleveland then asked me to try out. I sign on my birthday, which is a great year. I go all of OTAs. Obviously, Hard Knocks happens there, but this is where it's hitting the peak. Like, I'm still going through a lot of trauma, because now I'm so aware. I've had 3 years in this. That ACL recovery year was such a deep dive in energy and spirituality and the quantum world and the power of words, and wouldn't it be nice, and meditation and going to these places and universe. And that may be far-fetched for all of you, but really discovering who is Devon. And then I come to Cleveland, and I have, unfortunately, another traumatic experience before I go to training camp, where I needed one last push to, like, really, who are you, Dev? Like, you really know who you are? And I didn't. And I found those loopholes, and I got, like, demolished. And again, suicide was super high. And I don't want to dive into it too much, but it was more or less like that test of conviction. Go back to training camp, and it was like, I'm going to prove it again. Like, I can do this. Like, I'm not afraid as much as I feel afraid. We're Cajuste, we're fighters, right? Like, you just keep going. And it was so amazing to feel the energy of support, not only from my dad now, because I hadn't talked to him for 2 years. I cut out my whole, and a lot of people don't know that I cut out my whole family right after I tore my ACL. You know, I was like, I got to do this alone. And 2 years, my dad just came back into my life 5 days before training camp starts. You know, he comes there, and he flies out there and go through training camp. Honestly, like, just fighting the best I can. Thought I could make the team, but then still it came to your conviction. I tore my shoulder. Playing through the season, and I mean the off season, those preseason games, and then came that moment where they asked me, "Will you sign this waiver and just say you're healthy, and you can probably be on practice squad?" And I was like, politics. I couldn't take the risk, and so I said no. And I thought they would still sign me and help me out, but the universe had other plans. And then came this 3 weeks of limbo. And if anybody understands what limbo is, it's really like, what's the purpose of life and existence, and why am I here, right? Like, you're just floating around aimlessly. But really the biggest weight for me was recognizing, like, do you want to rehab your shoulder with a partial rotator cuff, partial bicep, a little bit of labrum, 6 months, basically the ACL of your shoulder, play a sport that you potentially may or may not get an opportunity? Or are you going to do energy work? And I remember going to a crystal store, and that's when I started doing healings for the first time. And when I saw people get off this table and their eyes open, and the expression that they felt in the fullness, I'm like, you can't replicate this. Like, and I'm just the conduit. I'm not the healer. That's the biggest thing with energy work. People were like, I'm the healer. I'm like, no, you are the conduit for people to heal themselves, and to see someone empower themselves, motivate themselves, inspire themselves. This is something that I can't do on a screen. This is something that my impact was more powerful one-on-one, speaking here, helping people this way. Let Aaron Rodgers, let Tom Brady, let Steph Curry, let LeBron James do the athletic way of inspiration. I'm going to use this path. And when I finally decided that it was going to be energy work, boom, then everything finally opened for me. I left the game. I'm about to go into surgery. I got 3 weeks until this moment. And I said, you know what? I believe in energy and crystals. So I set up a little crystal grid, and this is one of my favorite stories. Set up a grid, and for 3 weeks, I spent 10 minutes every day just sending healing to my shoulder. I'm like, I'm healed. Because I honestly could not afford to be in a sling with no job and figuring out my life.
Right.
I go into surgery, all of a sudden come out of surgery, and the first thing the doc says to me is like, we must have misread the MRI. There was no tear, just inflammation. And I'm like, energy. This is a specialist shoulder in the Cleveland Clinic. Like, this dude has seen thousands of MRIs, like 50% labral tear. Like, you can't really mess that up. He showed me, right? But to me, it was like, this was the proof of what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so here on, like, I just pursue this. And I can stop here for the football story, but it's like, this was the journey of like, this is who I am. Like, I'm about energy. I'm about connection. I'm about discovering who is Devon more and more. And it doesn't mean I still don't go through depression, and I still don't go through something, I don't experience these things. But football was not about to play football. It was about one episode on Hard Knocks when I talk about stones and crystals, and when thousands of people reached out to me and didn't ask me about football. More people asked me, what are crystals? What is energy? What are stones? And I'm like, this was it. 16 years came to this episode, this moment, to recognize this is a part of my purpose. And this is why I'm forever grateful to the sport. And I still fought. And now I recognize I don't need to prove anything in football. It doesn't mean I can't play the game. Doesn't mean I wasn't able. Doesn't mean I wasn't good enough or couldn't have been good enough to play. I know I can. But let me do something that's never been done before, in a way that's never been done before, to inspire people, to be the mirror and remind them that who are you is up to you to discover. Who do you want to be is up to you. And how do you want to express that joy compassionately? Co-passion, the way of living, co-cooperation. I compassionately accept the way that you live and as you are. I love you unconditionally. Boom. Do you feel motivated, inspired? Yes, I am just holding the mirror. I did nothing for you. You know, it was like that. I think is more powerful, because no one changes somebody. People change themselves. You only inspire somebody to change themselves. And this non-attachment, I think, is what one of the major purposes of life is. So thank you.
I love it. I love it. Well, so something that you said in there really sticks out to me. So, you know, I've had a few different NFL players on the show, and they talk about, you know, finding self-worth in football, and then they retire from the NFL and they realize, oh my gosh, like who am I without this? And I think your story about being with the Packers and tearing the ACL, and your question is, can I dress up like Santa? You know, like, I mean, is that okay? Like, that's such an interesting thing, because, and once again, I'm sure in that moment it doesn't click to you like, oh wow, like, you know, this is me, you know, like I'm okay with being just me, and I don't have to have 100% of who I am be defined by football. But I think so many people would have been caught up in, well, what does this mean for my career? Right. Just freaking out about, well, what's my future hold? And you were still present in the moment, right? You're like, 24 hours from now, though, we've got Christmas. And so, like, can I still be there? Can I still dress like that? So I think that's such an interesting moment that you share, and that you remember that.
Yeah, man. I think it was actually the culmination of everything I've been working for the previous 8 weeks, you know, being like, trying to show people, like, it didn't matter how much something is supposed to happen in your mind. What is happening is what's supposed to happen. And I knew that moment, clearly I had different plans in store. I had to accept that. To fight and resist is unnecessary, because you can't change it. So let me just take this moment and, again, be the mirror, the reflection of like, hey, guess what? I'm going to take this energy and just redirect it to where I'm supposed to be now. You know, I think it truly affected the team. I think it really showed them like the power of energy and thought and going within.
I love it. I love it. So talking a little bit about the stones, and I know we're close on time, so I'll make sure to be brief here, but we would have to have 4 more episodes to be able to just talk through the stones, because there's so many different types of stones and what they do, right? I mean, I tried to research a bit just so I could be more acquainted with it, but talk a little bit about, for you, maybe, since your favorite number is 3, maybe like, hey, the top 3 stones in your opinion, or the things that you feel like, hey, this helps people transform? I'm sure everyone's different based on what they need, but if there's maybe a few takeaways that we could give a very broad, brief overview on.
Really simple. Think of a stone like a song.
Yeah.
You go and play a song when you're at the gym, you play a song to fall asleep, you play a song to study. It's a frequency that's emitting through your body, through your ears. It affects you and creates set emotion to do set task. Stones, it's a trapped vibration. They emit a frequency. It then thus affects your body to then do set task.
Yeah.
Really simple. There's the science. Energetic, they have an intelligence, a collective consciousness, just like plants do, just like animals do, just like the earth does. Something that you may not be aware of, but when you ask it and set an intention to it, it helps amplify that signal, that frequency, making you more attuned to the radio station, to hear the song or life experience that you would like to play.
Yeah.
3 stones in my personal life, but it's because of who I am. Remember, there are so many other signs, so many other expressions of way of being. So these 3 stones may not work for you in the way that you would actually like to exist.
Yeah.
For me, blue kyanite, which I feel everyone should have. Blue kyanite is the stone that de-stresses, takes anxiety down, and instills calmness, absorbs negativity, and converts it into peace. Zincite, it's a powerful manifestation stone. Comes from a chimney actually at this like chemical plant, and it forms this beautiful, beautiful crystal. Really, really good at rooting people into the ground, taking them out of survival mode and into thriving mode by allowing them to create what they want to experience. And then moldavite, which I found out blew up all over TikTok. So it's unfortunate that they're super expensive now. And people are getting their butts kicked with this, but it's because it's considered the holy grail of stones. It's a meteorite. It takes you from point A to point B on the fastest path. And in doing so, it's uprooting everything in your life, emotional, mental, physical, that is no longer serving you in your best interest to getting you to that point. So be careful, gentle. Most people are like F moldavite. It's like, no, it's really what needed to be removed. And if you were ready for it, just know that you created the experience. Don't blame it, don't project it. It's your story, your experience. So yeah.
That's phenomenal. So before we wrap up, there's a couple of things that you've said today that I want to highlight that I think are interesting. So in the very beginning, when we were talking about, your relationship with your dad, and you said, I really wanted to do this because I want to feel love, right? And I was constantly in search for that. I think, there's 2 things that people want. And I think sometimes we almost can get them confused or maybe not even be able to differentiate between the 2. But I think one is that feeling of love and, what that brings. But I think the other one is respect, right? And I think when we feel love, but we don't feel respect from someone, we're not able to fully embrace that. I think when the love and the respect is there, I think it's a much different experience. So maybe talk a little bit about for you, as your relationship with your dad changed and grew over time, if you started feeling both the love and the respect in that relationship.
Thank you. Simply, I want to take the word respect though, and recognize that we're defining what respect means. And if we define something, that means we're creating parameters, right?
Yeah.
And if we create parameters, that means we're creating a condition, right? Condition means that the love is conditional. And with that conditional expression of love, toss out the word respect and that desire to be filled by something outside of you. Do you feel respectful to yourself? Accept and love yourself with no conditions, that everything you're doing automatically is in alignment with what you define as respect. You don't need anyone to tell you you're respectful, you're not, because you innately know that the vibration you are projecting is good, it is well, it is peaceful, respectful, beautiful, awesome, strong, whatever. So then I would really ask the question, what are you defining as respect? And why do you feel the need to obtain it? Because here lies in the root of your condition. And when you remove this condition, you then recognize, you then accept others the same way as they are, and respect isn't needed. The desire for love in this way outside of you isn't needed. It could be want, it could be felt, it could be beautiful, but it will happen not because you're attempting to conform. It just happens because you are being, period. So I just wanted to take it to another level.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like, you could apply that to anything. Like, so for my dad and I now, it's like our relationship is honestly really shaky. I still accept and love him as he is, but then to say it's shaky is defining what shaky is. It's exactly what it needs to be. And I found so much beauty in it as the way that this man wants to be and chooses to exist. And that means I also then choose how I choose to exist.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get parameters and like expectations and projection to earn that respect or not. I know I'm respectful. I know I love him so much. I know I accept everything about him. And in essence, I know the same comes back. Whether he chooses to speak, not speak, love, not love, hug, talk, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Because my being knows.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. My mind's racing now. You and I are going to have like an hour-long conversation offline now.
Yeah.
So then
Totally.
the last thing that I really wanted to highlight that I thought was very interesting, profound is, you talked about how in your Stanford days, it started with, I just wanted to catch the ball once. Right. And then it was, I just wanted to get a touchdown. And then it was, I wanted to start. And, it was that progression, and it wasn't, I should have 5 touchdowns in my first game. It was like, it was very progression based goal setting. And I think that's super important because so many people want everything to happen right away, or they want the senior season as a freshman. And it's like, well, you're setting yourself up potentially to not reach that level and actually, lower your self-esteem if you don't reach it, or, however it's perceived. But talk a little bit about the power in setting goals that are steps and, progressions, opposed to it's either all or nothing type goals.
It's pretty much exactly as you said. When you want to take a leap, you stretch so far that if you miss the step, you tear everything in the middle.
Yeah.
And I have been a victim of this, and I chose to be a victim of that. It was like when I didn't achieve those major goals, I literally was the only person experiencing that suffering. And so when I would achieve my minute goal, I knew all the little things that it took to get one catch.
Yeah.
I had to my ass off for my teammates. I had to be doing everything right in practice. I had to do all the plays. Like, there was already enough steps to make the one catch seem like a leap, but I still knew one catch was very obtainable. All it took was one play, one opportunity. So from this, it was like making it large enough, knowing that all of these steps in the middle still have to be done, so that if you do fall, you're like, boom, it's still one catch. I can still brace myself. Maybe it's not like I'm overstretched. It's like, I just tripped and stumbled. And the reason why that's really important is because we have this reward system. And I had to learn this, and I'm still learning this, but my host father, and don't need to dive into like what that means, but my host dad, John Carlton, would always say, just a little bit better each day, right? And that just a little bit really contributes over time, but it also teaches you patience, and it teaches you resilience, and teaches you determination. So when you try to go for those huge ass goals, there's nothing wrong with having that as the big picture. Make that the like outcome goal, but then make a performance goal of what are 2 major things, and thank you, Shannon Turley, 2 major things that are going to contribute to this outcome, and then create 5 process steps that you're like, if you do these 5 processes, like, you will perform. And then the only way that you don't perform is, you didn't do the processes. And so then the only person you could blame is you.
Yes.
So really zooming in basically to see that, that huge leap, it could take 5, 10, 15 years. The time doesn't matter, because you execute the process, things will unfold. And if it doesn't unfold the way that you want to, surrender to it, recognize what you did achieve and where you are at this moment, because maybe you were being told, actually, there's a giant waterfall right there you can't see, and you might fall off. So we're going to bet in the river over here. So pay attention to that resistance, right?
Yeah.
It's so important for people. You create this reward and recognize, okay, every paddle is you achieving a little bit further, a little bit more. You're not rushing anywhere. So when shit starts to turn, you're like, I can deal with it a little bit. It's not too much, versus like big ass stroke, arms are tired, death, right? Like, it's just, think of the elements of water, man. Like, it's always distant. It's very cyclical. It always returns back home to the ocean, and it goes through its process. And sometimes it rains and it raises up and it gets a little stronger. And sometimes it dries out a little bit, but it's always flowing with consistency. And consistency is the greatest thing that you could possibly achieve in life, whether it's 1%, 20%, 100%, but just do something and make sure and just give yourself a nice pat on the back that you decided to just do one more row in the water. One day, maybe a thought is all you can give that day. Yeah. That is way more rewarding over time. And next thing you know, like we talked about in this conversation, time flies. And next thing you know, you're like, boom, I'm here. And I didn't even know how I got here, but I enjoyed the whole trip.
Yes. I love it. Well, Devon, I appreciate the heck out of it, man, sharing your story and all this great wisdom and insight. There's no doubt that people are going to be impacted in a positive way from this and have something to take away that they can instantly add to their life. So I appreciate you, brother. You and I have to connect again. We'll say 4 years from now, we're going to do this show again, and we're going to see how many lives you changed and how you're doing that. But I appreciate you, my man, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much, Phil. I appreciate you and everyone out there. I love you so much for listening, and I appreciate your time and patience. Thank you. Thank you.